Hey guys, it's Lee Castledine here, and welcome to our first ever drone podcast, aptly named the best drone podcast. Yes, not just the normal drone podcast or an average drone podcast, it's the best drone podcast. Thank our CEO, James, for that one. My name is Lee Castledine, as I said, and it's our first ever podcast. This podcast is all about drones. It's all about the industry of drones. It's about the people behind it, the technology, everything about it. And it's quite an exciting industry to be in. We've got our first guest today, Alex from Pryority Droneworks. Alex, welcome. I'm going to read your intro before you say anything. And I'm going to read it because you wrote it. I'm actually just taking this off LinkedIn, all right? So now Alex is a managing director of Pryority Droneworks. It's a technical service provider offering a range of industries with near real-time data to help make accurate and well-informed decisions. Using drones, smart scanners, and sensors, Alex takes the guesswork out of LFA's project works for architectural, engineering, and construction projects, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing clash detection. And he has a really unique and varied background, which we're going to get stuck into. He's got a unique set of skills: automotive, defense, construction, and unmanned aviation. Passionate about information fusion. I don't even know what that is. It sounds like a drink, but we're going to get stuck. Alex, welcome. First ever guest on our podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's a great intro, even though I wrote it myself.
It was there, didn't you?
It sounds fantastic.
Mate, there's the intros. When I always read intros, there's obviously a lot of words there and a lot of things. So we're going to sort of break your intro down, I suppose, because there's a lot of technological sort of words in there and statements that I actually don't know, and I'm in the drone space myself. But I suppose I want to get back into your background. I'm always interested in how people get involved in drones. You know, like I remember when I first got started, I bought a cheap drone and just started flying, and next thing you know, 6 years later, I've got a business out of it. And same with yourself. You know, you got started somehow. So, but I find it really interesting about talking to the people, how they got started, their backgrounds, and then how they sort of tripped and fell over, and then all of a sudden found themselves flying, $50,000 drones.
Yeah, that's right. It was an interesting way how we got into drones. So I have got a varied background. It is quite unique.
Should we start with automotive?
We can go way.
We'll just work our way
go back old school.
Yeah, work our way down the list. Automotive.
We'll take it back to 99. So I met a guy at a petrol station who had a GDR parked out the front, which was very unusual for 1999.
Yeah.
Spoke to the bloke and he said, you've just imported it for my own use, but I'm looking at starting a business. So we got chatting, and 2 months later, I started working for him in importing Japanese cars. So at the time, you could basically apply to have a low volume import.
Okay.
So you could apply to import, say, 100 Skylines a year, and you could comply them to Australian design rules and then sell them. So it was not a direct competition to Holden and Ford at the time. It was just
Holden and Ford were the big players back in the day? Yeah,
absolutely.
And then you'd have your Nissans and probably Mitsubishis, but not as big as they are now.
So these models would be models that wouldn't be offered globally, and you would have a small amount that you would be able to sell because they were special models. Like a GDR is a special sort of half a race car, but it's really a passenger car. So that was a really cool time because we were complying cars to Australian design rules when there were no design rules for those vehicles. So we would work with engineers in providing seatbelt solutions, child anchor points, complying fuel fillers, doing all these kind of things to make them comply to Australian design rules. That was really fun.
Did you have any background in
automotive? I had a really good history. My uncle is a car nut. He's a Volkswagen car nut. So when I was a young fellow, he used to go drag racing and built this black Beetle, 56 Beetle. I remember being a young fella, in the back of it, driving to Melbourne to go to car shows and stuff like that. So I had that automotive history from, an experience from him. I thought it's in the blood.
So how long did that go for? Like, how many did you import 100? Did you sell 100? Did you import 100 and sold one? And how did the business go?
It went quite well. It really, really went well. So we're at the point where we're going to go for ISO 9001 certification and become like a full-on business. And then the government said, there's quite a few of you trying to do that.
Okay.
And they went, you know what, we're just going to support Holden and Ford and Toyota and back them and put some big money into that. So they actually scrapped a lot of the plates. So they reduced the numbers from, say, 100 to 50, and then it went down to 20 and just didn't become viable. So, and then, Fast and the Furious and all that sort of was happening at the same time. So there was a lot of heat from the police.
Right.
So you'd have a really nice complied GDR that was a 9-second car on the street. Wasn't probably ideal. So there was a lot of interesting heat from the police. So that sort of got squashed. So that was a funny phase for the life. Yeah, but it gave me some really good skills about solving problems and working with stakeholders. So working with engineers and regulatory bodies like the Department of Registration.
Exactly. Talking about CASA, which we'll go into a bit later. That's obviously a big regulator there in the drone space that we need to deal with. And then, all right, now move on to defence. You're a big unit. You're a big rig. I reckon you've been on the front line.
Yeah, that's correct. This is how I came out of the oven, though. So, 110 kilos.
You poor mum.
Yeah. There's photos of me when I was 2 holding a big fish, and people think I'm about 5 or 6, but no, I was only 2. But so I joined up when I was 22.
Yep.
Into a pretty unique program called the Special Forces Direct Entry Scheme. So it was after 2000 when they started looking at recruiting sports people and people from all walks of life directly into Special Forces roles. So it was a bit of a weird program.
And that doesn't happen normally. They don't go direct in. They've sort of got to go through the normal channels. Is that right?
Yeah. So previously it would be, for roles in, say, SAS and commandos, there would be guys from regular battalions that would train up and then apply for a selection process and then go through. So, but this was a unique program where they'd take civilians and go through some pretty crazy screening processes and then put them directly into training and see how they go.
Just fast track them and then single swim.
And just go for it. And then there's no history, battalion history or bad habits or any of that have come in. So it's pretty unique. And they were getting guys, elite triathletes, footy players, guys like myself, guys with mechanics, pilots, like a really mixed background.
Mixed background, yeah.
Yeah, and it produced a really good result because they had basically new companies that had crazy problem-solving ability.
Yeah.
So it was really good, a good result for them. So I was part of that. It took, so it was 2004. It took 18 months to become what they call beret qualified. So get the green beret, and off you go.
How was those 18 months? Obviously,
unbelievable.
Coming from a background of non-army, you probably stayed fit and looked after yourself, but that probably the training that would have put you through, especially if they're fast tracking as well.
Exactly.
They're putting you through your paces, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you drop out as well, you get a few.
The attrition rate is ridiculous. So I think for
the sporties like, because I'm always interested to see whether sporties pick up.
Well, it's interesting because it's sporties, some went well, but some really didn't.
Probably the AFL guys, they probably,
a few of those were pretty tough.
Bugger.
The triathlete guys really struggled. They were really good on endurance, but then they needed a lot of rest as well.
Yeah,
so fuel was a big thing. So one of the slogans in the unit is they talk about toughness, not fitness. So if you can do a task for a long period of time, and you might not be, at Olympic level, but you've just got to be able to do it for 50 hours.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So they just talk about that toughness. So
yeah, soccer players, they would have just crumbled, I reckon.
Well, yeah, that's right.
They probably didn't get an invite.
Not enough video cameras for them. So
I love your soccer players.
Yeah.
You're the best, but come on. Stay on your feet. Come on.
Some fit blokes, yes. It was a really, really mixed bag.
And then obviously straight from training and then bang off.
We're pretty much.
Because that would have been around about that time where there was a fair bit of work going on overseas.
Yeah, it got very busy very quick. So a few of us guys were just qualified, got put into a company, which they call it, and then that company was deployed within weeks almost. So we were straight into Timor-Leste when that all kicked off, and then we went to Fiji after that when there was the coup, and then we got ready to go after Afghanistan and then come back, and it was rotation after rotation.
So how many deployments?
3, 4, 5, hard to, you lose track after. Yeah.
Really?
And then short ones as well in between.
I was going to say, are they normally 3 months at a time?
Depends on the task.
Yeah.
So one of the things with the unit is we would be task specific. So you might only go for a week and resolve an issue, or you might go there for a full rotation, which could be up to 6 months. So just depending on what you're doing. So.
And how long did that whole part of your life last for?
So it was about 8 years, but crazy, intense.
And 8 years. Would have learned a lot, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was really good. I have no regrets whatsoever.
And I suppose why did you start moving out of it? Just had enough the travel.
Travel was relentless. So for that 8 years, I was away 4 years, like gone, not seeing me. So I had my girlfriend at the time. So I met her my first night in Sydney, which is interesting. So it was like 9 months into being in the army.
Yep.
So I sort of met her at the Coogee Bay Hotel, which is the way that played out. And then it was just super intense. So the last 18 months of almost 2 years was on counterterrorism duty. So it's black roll. So that was the goal I'd set out to achieve from the very beginning. So I got to that end state, and then it was going to be rotating off into green roles and deploying and starting to do the loop. We also had a number of casualties during that period, and my now wife said to me, I don't want to be that girl up the front.
Yeah.
I really don't want to be that girl.
And I suppose when you're young too, you don't think about that stuff. And then when you start, you have a partner and you start thinking about your future, you probably think, you know what, geez, is this the life for me? You know, it was good when you're young. And when you're young and naive, you're probably just going, yeah, lots of travel. How good is this?
Best job in the world.
Yeah. And then when you start getting a few greys and you sort of think, oh, hang on a sec, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life or whatever? So obviously you lasted about 8 years and then you transitioned out of the army.
That's it, yeah. So when I transitioned out, I was looking for another job that I could obviously sustain for a long period of time.
And what year was this?
So it was just after 2010.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, so sort of the start of 2010, looked at a job, was offered a position in a security firm as a state manager and sort of transitioned to that, but GFC, and it was a really hard market to go into. So there was like, I had about 15 jobs in that first year going out. So it was hard to sort of find my feet. I was very lucky that I started studying at the same time. So I started a Cert 4 in building and carpentry apprenticeship at the same time, but couldn't find a host employer because I was an old bloke, even though I was only like 28.
Washed up.
28, yeah, almost 30. So
yeah,
it was really, really interesting. But I was lucky to find a guy in Sydney who was ex-Israeli Army, had a really good building company, got in touch with him through security and just never looked back. He knew exactly what I was about and never looked back.
Yeah, and look, we will get to the drone side of things, but it's important to set up context because getting out of the army, and I've experienced this out of sport as well, that initial, first 6 months to 12 months out of something that is your identity is very tricky because, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is, I've been through it and you've been through it and people go through that. And it does relate back to the drone space because at some stage people want to get out of their industry and want to, whether a builder, electrician, surveyor, and they want to start flying drones or they want to get into that. but however, they're stuck in that little on a builder.
The safe zone.
The safe zone. So that would have been an interesting 6 to 12 months where, they call it adjustment disorder, trying to get back into normal life and things like that. So out of those couple of jobs that you tried to, you actually just narrowed it down and got into construction and spent a few years there?
Yeah, exactly. So I was lucky to work. This builder so it's a luxury builder. It's still going today, really, really strong in Sydney. So they build hyper luxury homes, 10, 20, $50 million homes, like crazy, amazing builds. So it was a really good experience. So got to see that basically everything from start to finish and interact with those people because obviously those people are obviously very unique as well. So to find out their stories is really interesting. So you sort of get a bit curious on the whole.
And I'm thinking that if you're buying a $10 million house, the property, there's, attention to detail has got to be spot on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're working with the best architects, the best products and, they've all got high specifications and there's a lot at stake. So it's an interesting process in managing all of those expectations from all parties.
Yeah. And then obviously you're in that industry for how long?
So that was very similar. So 8 years. So we sort of moved up here in that last 18 months, continuing in building construction. Then the injury started to catch up for me.
Oh,
so that's when it got a bit real. So,
what started to hurt? What part of your body?
Well, I was actually on a surfing camp up here at High Performance Centre. And
hang on, back it up. You didn't say that you're a high performance surfing camp.
Well, it was. I wasn't the high performance part of it, but that's where the centre is.
Oh, right. I thought you were going, hang on a sec. You haven't told me that you're a good surfer.
I've got the same haircut as Kelly Slater, but I don't surf like him. So yeah, that's so it was organised through veterans. So
gotcha.
Yeah, through Mates for Mates and Soldier On. So I was a soldier on camp, and we were allowed to go on that and be videoed and get coaching. And the sports scientist there said, as I was getting up and going left on waves, she said, like, something's not right with how you get up and go left. Like you're really compressed on that side.
Sort of like the Zoolander of surfing. You just can't turn left.
Exactly.
Ambi-turner.
Exactly. That's exactly what she was saying. She's like, something's not right. You should go.
Were you in pain at the time? Or you just like, that's just the way my body moved?
Yeah.
Didn't think anything of it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just, I'm sure you've had sporting injuries and you're just going and that's normal. So you just sort of get on with it. But so I ended up going to the doctor and having some scans done. And the initial response was just not amazing. You haven't got much cartilage left around your hips, and you should probably get them checked out by a specialist. First visit to the specialist, he goes, so let me know when you want to book in.
Book in for a
double hip replacement. What do you mean?
What do you mean?
Well, it's insane. So,
were you having much pain there, or a little bit, just like? But that's again,
it's uncomfortable, pain, but it's tolerable, and just
You're in the army, I suppose. That's what you do. It's the same as sport. You just learn to move on with pain. Correct. And that's what you got to do. It's that, and sometimes that's a good thing. Yep. Sometimes it's a bad thing, because at some stage we probably didn't know that pain was probably worth getting looked at, and you didn't. Correct. And it took a surfing camp to find out what was going on.
It took a sports scientist to go, you've got some issues there, you should probably get that checked out. So that was really interesting. So it forced a significant change into what we were doing. So I couldn't supervise and do the same things in construction. So even then I was starting to look at different ways of doing things on site. But it took 12 months while I was researching who I was going to have this procedure done by, because it's a pretty big deal.
Double hip, yeah.
Yeah, pretty big deal. I looked at doing it both at once, and then 3 months in between. And
what did you end up doing?
3 months in between. So
that's the recommended. See, for me, I'd go just get it done now. But
so I talked about that with my surgeon, and he said, you've got 2 young kids at home. They're both, pretty young, 2 and 3. So they're going to come past and take out one of your legs, and then you're going to be on the floor, and then you're going to be back on my table. Let's not do that. Kids, Logistics.
You don't think of that. Yeah.
So it was really good by him. So he said, look, just work on it and let's do it, 3 months apart, which is a quick turnaround. But we put in the work to do it, and it was really good. It was a really good result. They're amazing.
And so metal?
Yeah, so I've actually got, it's like 2 hemispheres. So it's like a titanium composite alloy. So they've got like a short stem, and then like 2 hemispheres like on the ball, and then another one. So it actually gets more movement. So I've actually got more range of movement than I would have had previously.
So you can actually surf and turn to your left now.
Correct. Yeah.
Have you been surfing?
I have. Yeah.
And
so that was the big goal.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what I said to him. I said, I want to get back surfing and doing these things. He said, I'm happy for you to do that as long as you've done it at a reasonable level before, but probably don't go and do downhill skiing if you're not a level expert, because you're going to have issues. So, so he's been really good. So that sort of took me out of construction and doing things.
How long did that take you out of the construction space for?
About a year.
And it was at that time. Now we're getting into, I suppose, the life cycle of your career, what you've done, and now we're sort of going, righto, I'm a builder, I'm in construction, I can't do the things I once did. I need to look at different things, whether it be, and you don't look like you want to be an office boy, you like getting out there and about. I can't see you behind an Excel spreadsheet, punching in formulas all day, every day.
Correct.
So then you looked at doing something a little bit different, and obviously it did still relate to the construction space as well.
I certainly did, yeah. So, we were exposed to some amazing technology in the military, especially in our unit. We had some really cool assets and gear that we used to get exposed to. So that was always there, and having that time off allowed me to probably re-explore some of that tech, especially UAVs and drones.
What was some of the cool things that you saw in because like you hear about it, and you hear about these drones flying, in the movies, 10,000 feet, taking photos or videos, spying on people and stuff like that. You don't hear about too many other things though, but is that legit?
Well, there's a reason. There's some good gear in there.
There's obviously some confidential stuff that you don't want. Is there anything you can say that is like, that was cool?
There's still some pretty cool stuff in there, but they're still in that box.
In that space.
But drones was a big part of it, and that's how I came into it, especially the sensor suites on them. So the ability to have that remote situational awareness is huge. It's a huge thing. So
it's changed the game for drones, even the commercial drones as well. That spatial awareness. I remember when I started flying drones, and it would run into stuff if you got close. It wasn't giving you any sensors. It wasn't stopping, saying, "Hey, Lee, you're getting a bit too close to that building." If you got close to it, you're going to run into it. Yeah. So obviously, that's just from a commercial drone perspective. I'm imagining, in the army space, that's a whole nother level, isn't it?
A whole nother level. They had pilots in the US, so in California, flying UAV platforms out of Kandahar and Afghanistan,
That's real. It's
real.
legit. Like
It's
literally
legit.
in little bunkers flying
Absolutely.
drones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they're not flying little phantoms. They're not flying these little tellos.
These are, everything from 150 up to full size aircraft almost.
Yeah. And millions of dollars of, unmanned aircraft. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
they make a big difference. So we'd use it for pathfinding and new maps. And that's sort of what it got my mind thinking is, well, when we were looking at early stage construction, a supervisor would go to the site and make a note, take photos and try and get some context for the design team. And it's like, well, we sort of used to do that for our missions overseas. We would get context before we'd execute those missions. So why not do the same thing in construction? So there's some technology out there now, Google Maps and Google Earth, but a lot of that data is old.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember. I think my house, my roof, it was a new roof put on like 7 years ago. And I think it's still the old roof, and I live pretty close to the city. So you're right, the data is not live, and you don't expect it to be live, and pretty close to today's form. So basically, what you've done is the work that you did in the army and the technology that you saw there, you've literally said, hang on a sec, I'm working in the construction space. I can utilize some of that technology or some of the processes used and pretty much use that for the construction space. Yeah. Was anyone doing it at that time in the construction space, doing what you were trying to do?
Probably not specifically. Yep. And there were a few providers providing that data, but trying to put it in context and use it for early stage design. Not really. That was sort of supplied as that's sort of what the site looks like, but not near real time, not like data from yesterday. Here you go and start designing. It was sort of like, okay, grab that, orthomosaic from Google Maps. It's about 5 years old, but
that'll do.
That sort of gives you an idea, doesn't it? But everything else has changed. There's a high rise behind, or those views that you thought you were going to get of city views, or they don't exist.
Yeah.
So, and that was pretty important. So, because if you're a client building a house and you expect city views, but it's not correct.
That's why you're paying. That's why you're paying top dollar.
And that's why you engage a designer to do that research for you. So I remember being in Sydney for the building company. We do that for architects, set up scaffold to the correct height to view the city views and validate it. It's an expensive process.
Absolutely.
Set up scaffold at significant height.
Cherry picker.
Everyone there.
Cherry picker, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever works to get that same orientation and outlook. But now you can do it.
Do it on the drone.
Exactly.
And so it's interesting because it's not the love of, some people get started. For myself, I got started because I love my content and I love aerial photography and just the images that it can capture. And that's how I got into that space. And I was just doing it as a hobby, filmed a lot of surfers doing up the Sunshine Coast. And it was like, this is cool. I love this. I just didn't want to get in the water too. It was too cold. I think at the time it was winter and I didn't want to do surf photography in the water. But yourself, it wasn't so much from a hobby. You went straight into, there's a business opportunity. And then from there, you've seen the technology, and then you would have had to done your research to go, right, how do I get my license? What have I got to do to do this professionally? Or did you just go, I'll just take a drone, I'll just do it, and then figure out the licensing part of it later? Because I'll be honest, I did that. I just started flying, and then I found out later, I need a license. I shouldn't have done that. That was a bit, okay. So, yeah.
And that's exactly how I started. So I bought a Phantom, secondhand. I thought, this would be interesting. Let's just sort of dip into it and see what's possible. And I went flying at Byron Bay, which is
it's not bad.
Not bad. Good spot. So same
good
thing.
Place to start.
So filming surfers. Yeah. I've actually still got that footage, that original footage. But
I've got some good race stuff at Byron.
Amazing.
Byron, you can't fly the Byron around the lighthouse now.
No,
I took off. I remember I took off.
The beach.
Literally. I took off where the lighthouse was.
On the car.
That was like, where people watch. That's how old I went. And I just said there was a beautiful sunrise and I did a nice little orbit around the lighthouse. It was just, that was used on a Phantom 2 with a GoPro and a gimbal that I attached to it. And it's still one of the best footage I've done. And then on top of that, there was a beach. There was this art guy, this sand guy who raked sand into these amazing designs. Yeah. And that's how my Instagram account went viral. Well, not viral, started getting some followers because I was just conveniently up watching, getting a sunrise of the Byron the Bay Lighthouse. And then I thought, what's that? What was this weird guy? He was on something. He was on
like a Zen garden down there.
He was like, and it was, I think it was Watergoes Beach. And he had a rake and I'll show you. I'll try and get it up somewhere. But it was just this guy, and he started, and he was there for hours, and just doing this amazing design. And I flew over it, and it was just, I didn't think much of it. I've gone because I wanted to get other footage. I've gone, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And then I just threw it up on my Instagram account at the time, and then a few art accounts picked it up, and then it just went bang, 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 bang. That's how it got started. Wow. Anyway, side note. You went to
very similar.
Yeah.
So the same thing, and just went, wow, how good is this? And then started looking at what we could do with the photos, and then learned, what's photogrammetry and what's stitching it together, and learning that it's very similar to how we see as humans. You have 2 points of view, and then you overlap it, and that's how we see in 3D, and that's how they do it the same with photos. It was just amazing start. But then the regulation sort of kicked in. How do I do this for a living? How does it wasn't even for a living at that stage. It was for my own information. It was for family looking for some development sites, and how do we get near real-time maps and something.
The more you look into the wormhole, the drone wormhole, you go,
rabbit hole.
You just go, oh, I wish I didn't look into that. And you want to do it for the right reasons, because you go, well, I want to do this right, and I want to make sure it's safe. And potentially, yes, there could be a business out of it in the future. Let's just see what I need to do. And then you go, oh, wow.
Epic.
So obviously you did your training, got your REPL, which is your remote pilot license. You would have got your REOC as well, which is your basically, for those who don't know, is your business getting certified by CASA, and then you're away with you and just your Phantom.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is it's been a great adventure. So concentrating more on that construction side and providing that data, but that's also moved into insurance, roof inspections. But my focus is really on that early stage design. And clash detection, to put everything in context. One of the other big things I've started looking at is internals, because that was a sort of a feedback loop from our design teams at that early phase for renovations, where they were taking a heritage building or something that had a code overlay where they couldn't change a certain part of it.
Yep.
So like, I need the external, but I need those first 2 rooms because we're going to cut the building in half and then make it new.
Right.
So I need that context. And generally what they do is go in with tape measures and sketch it, and always forget the one critical measurement. So they have to go back again and again. So that's a problem. So it was a problem that needed to be solved. So we started looking at how we're going to solve that. And
you can't obviously fly a drone in the house and do that. There's different technology for that.
And even the software suites for photogrammetry didn't really lend itself to indoor reconstruction. It was very hard. I'm not sure if you've explored how crazy hard that is to do with just general cameras, with GoPros, or even the cameras we've got in front of us. But it doesn't work. It doesn't really work. So there was a good system out there. Matterport created a really nice 360 camera, which also had laser distance, so you could actually get measurable data out of it.
That's like survey quality data, or is it pretty close?
Within 1% of reality.
That's good.
And it's a good compromise between, say, a laser scanner, which is high end, 60, 100 grand instrument.
It costs a lot,
used by surveyors.
Yeah.
And you're only getting a millimeter better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you go, well, I can spend $4,000 on this, or I can spend 40 on that. Well,
yeah,
let's do it. And it's hyper efficient. It's so much quicker, because a lot of the data is processed in the cloud. So it's a lot easier than getting laser scan data out and processing it in that software and survey data, and then the workflow is a lot easier.
Yeah.
And that's been really good.
And so that side of the business, obviously you've got Pryority Droneworks, but that has tied into sort of, all of a sudden you've got different needs now. So if a client comes to you and say, yeah, we can do that internal stuff, or we can do external stuff as well. So you're sort of looking at I don't like using that term one-stop shop, but you're basically adding services to your business, because you go, right, well, I've got this drone space, I can do, aerial stuff, and then combine that as well. They can come to you and go, we can do internal and external, which is,
Absolutely. And I don't say that I'm a content creator. Like, that's not my thing. I'm in construction. I take technical survey data, and that's how I look at it. So as a qualified builder, I look at roof inspections differently to a content creator.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Very different. So
different.
I'll look at a flashing that's failed and know it's failed, whereas a content creator might do a really cool orbit around the building.
They make it look great. They'll make it look beautiful.
It'll look fantastic, but you can't see the defect.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any defect? I wouldn't know. I actually want to hide the defect.
Yeah. Actually, I don't want to look at that, because
well, most content creators hate flying over houses, because roofs look horrible. You got air conditioning units, you got bird shit, you got everything there. It's like, oh, you might have a dead rat up there, and you're just like, oh, how do I make that look pretty?
Look really cool.
Yeah, where you actually want that to look bad, because not bad, but you just want to show what it is and then fix a problem.
Yeah, correct.
Ah.
So to have that data, so it's a bit of a different angle. Yeah.
And so obviously, Pryority Droneworks began. How long have you had the business for now? So it's
18 months now.
It's relatively new, isn't it?
It's still very new.
I think pretty new, and it seems to be going really well, considering most people in the drone space, having been in the industry for about 6 years now, it's flooded. It's flooded with a lot of operators. Now, that's not to say there's not opportunities, but the space that you're in is very, not so much niche, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. So it's not like the low barriers to entry where you buy a Mavic Air here, you take it up and do some real estate photography, which everyone wants to do, which is great.
And you can't compete.
You can't compete.
Especially if you're certified.
If you're certified, you're not competing because you can't do the jobs half the time. Yep. And then you'll get Jimmy down the road, 18 years of age, and he's just bought a $500 drone, which takes 4K imagery, and he'll do it for $100 or a beer.
Exactly.
And you go, geez, I lost out.
And happy to not abide by the rules, which is a bit sad, but
it is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah.
So that forces people who, like yourself and us, to look at the more serious work and the work that actually can build efficiencies for businesses as well. So you're looking at businesses which used previous technology, and I always believe that if you can make it safer, taking people away from doing that job. So taking people away from using scaffolding, cherry picker, walking up a stockpile or whatever. So health and safety, and make it more efficient, then highly likely, if you've done a trial for that client, then that work will continue as well. And that's probably the biggest key for having a drone business, I reckon, is having ongoing work and a contract with a client that that's going to be consistent work. Because if you're just waiting for that phone to call to do a real estate job or a TV ad or whatever,
you're going to be waiting.
You're going to be waiting a while, and you probably lose out a lot of jobs because it's so competitive. So I suppose, what I've learned, and probably what you've learned, is, what can we do to make businesses utilize that technology and show them the technology, because they don't know it exists. No, you're in that space full time, aren't you?
Education. Yeah. Education is key. So a lot of people that have access to drones or advanced scanners and sensors, they don't know how to apply them. So it's not an applied technology, and it's not in their workflow. So until they're educated on, hey, if you do this and you can skip 10 steps and it costs, this, and they're like, oh, wow, that's now my business as usual. And that's great. So then that's an ongoing part of their business.
And how have you found that, like, in terms of educating the clients and the businesses that you work with? Is that
I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
So that was something probably both military and then that luxury construction that really I've found that I enjoy. So I enjoy liaising with all the stakeholders, and even probably back to the automotive stuff, liaising with all the different people that need to be informed to get that result. I really enjoy that.
Well, you're dealing with different people as well.
Yeah.
Different personalities.
Very different.
It's a bit like a coach in a cricket team or a sporting organisation. You've got different people who are sticklers for the rules, people who are just renegades and just do what they want, and you just got to manage them all at once.
Yeah. And then all their expectations.
Yeah. So 18 months now, and it's going well.
Yeah, going really well.
Yep.
Yeah, loving it. So,
and the hips are good?
The hips are A1, they're brand new.
Surfing,
yeah. Yeah, went yesterday. Went down to Currumbin. It was
good
beautiful.
waves.
Yeah, beautiful.
Just stay out of Sydney at the moment. That's some big swell down there.
Yeah, there is some big swell. Some of the guys sent me some footage from Manly, and it was ridiculous. So
what's next then for yourself, like for Pryority, like Droneworks? You're relatively new, 18 months, and you seem to be making a nice little go at it and using the technology, which is great. It's great to see that. What's next?
The division for the company is to continue on that heavy R&D focused and applied technology focused moving forward. So what are the next tools that are coming out that we can apply to the workflows, make things more efficient, and that's sort of what our big focus is.
And I've noticed that, because I think we're sort of like in between. You've got your client, you've got businesses, and then you've got the drone space, and then there's this technology and all this new tech that's coming out. And as business owners, you want to look at that tech and go, right, has that got commercial value?
Exactly.
And some of them you go, oh, that looks fantastic. Like, have a look at that underwater drone. That's amazing. You go, has it got commercial value? You go, probably not.
Yeah.
And then you look at some tech and you go, you know what, that would be amazing for the industry I'm in, which is what you're doing. So
yeah, so Matterport's a good example. I wasn't big on it a year ago because their data was siloed. It was stuck in their systems. You couldn't get it out and you couldn't do anything with it. So you could do a real estate tour. You could do a virtual tour. Cool. But what else can I do with it? And it was stuck in their system until about 6 months ago where they said, actually, you can buy a Matterpack now. So you can buy the point cloud data, the OBJ files, and you can do stuff with them. That was the change for me. Now I'm an advocate of that technology and use it all the time. So that makes a big difference.
It's a bit like Pix 4D,
correct?
Drone Deploy, orthomosaic and photogrammetry mapping. Only 3 years ago was you had to buy the software. It was like 10, 20 grand and just so much capital up front to try and even get started. Now there's subscription, sort of cloud-based software where, for $50 to $100 a month, you can utilize this amazing technology and people see it and they go, oh man, what sort of drone do you use for that? I go, I use literally a P4 on this, and it produces that. And you go, yeah, just you utilize the technology gets better. Companies want to make it available for drone operators. There's obviously a lot of linking in there for, with the current drones as well, to make sure they're all compatible. So that's great, mate. And so tell me a little bit about, I read here, entrepreneur at Antler. What's Antler?
So Antler's an incubator, a VC coaching and funding company.
Yep.
They're a global company. They've come to Sydney 18 months ago and started up a fund and an incubator program. So I got interested in what that actually means.
Yeah, what does that mean?
In context.
Incubator. Talking about incubator.
So it's basically a coaching program.
Yep.
So to train up whoever's in the cohort to reach a specific goal. And this goal is to achieve funding locally or on a global stage.
Or mentoring, because my business may need it down the track.
Yeah, so it's a mixed bag.
Yep.
So they focus more on the people and then the problems. So some people have problems that they'll bring in and have half solutions, but then they need another co-founder or just engagement at a higher level that they haven't been able to get to. And that's sort of what this is all about. So I'm part of a cohort of 100, and the variance of work backgrounds and skill sets is so diverse. It's amazing. And it's very similar to that direct entry scheme with special forces. And we're having very similar results where you can put in problems and people are going, oh, you've done that before. We did this and maybe we do it this way. And you're problem solving.
You're thinking differently because you have people in different industries, and the way that you think about something in one industry is so different from other industries. And I've always believed that if you can have this sort of little quadrant where you can tap into or either know people or know that skill set yourself, or that have that experience yourself. And you've got automotive, defense, construction, and UAV. So you've been in those industries and you know how that they think. So you've got a nice sort of round sort of, overall way of looking at things where you're not just stuck in this one industry and this is the only way to look at it.
Yeah.
And so I suppose that's what you're talking about. Antler
that's very similar. Yeah, exactly. They just bring a new perspective on these problems, which is awesome.
And so you're hoping to raise a couple of $100 million, or what are you trying to get out of this? Are you trying to?
There'll be steps. So
steps.
Looking for funding for sure. So at the moment we're looking for a co-founder. So the idea is that you go in and find a co-founder. So my business at the moment, I'm on my own, but I do engage other pilots in Adelaide, but I'm on my own. So there's only so much you can do on your own. Yeah,
it is. And that's one of the downsides of being owner operator for a drone business, and also being stuck in that one area, whether it be Southeast Queensland, and you've got a job, or you found a job in Adelaide or Perth, and then you think, right,
how do I service it?
How do I service that job? Yeah, it's always the ongoing question for a drone business wanting to expand. You win work, then how do I service that work, and then can I actually make any money out of it? Because a lot of times you just lose that money in labor fees, in logistics, travel, whatever. Yeah,
absolutely.
So then, so you're looking at that, and
so looking for a co-founder, and we're going to have complementary skill sets. Someone that may have had construction backgrounds, but just at least understand it, because it is a funny area. So it's a funny industry to be part of, and there's a lot of clicky parts of it, and it's also very old school and not digitally mature at all. So a lot of the solutions are competing with paper.
Which is good because you go,
It's
there's a
great.
huge opportunity, but then you're stuck with the culture of people not wanting to change. When
Correct.
something gets stuck so long for, that you go, guys, just listen to me. This will make the biggest difference. But they're like, no, I don't want to change. I don't want to be doing this. I remember doing some stockpile analysis for a client. They used to walk around the stockpile, and that's how they took their measurement of a stockpile. I go, hey guys, I've got a really good idea. If I fly this drone, take a few photos, and you can just click on it, it'll give you a measurement up to 5% variance. No, mate. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for 50 years. So, shit, just listen. Just give it a go. Trial it if you don't like it. And that's how a lot of our pilots start. You probably do a lot of pilots with, trials. You go, this is what we can do. Not guaranteeing it can make a difference, but just trial it. Set up a trial, set up a pilot. And if it works, great. Hey, let's just look at the data. Yeah. Look at this. Look what it can do. So
the education is huge.
Yeah,
we sort of touched on that before.
That's good.
So that's sort of where we're going into that construction tech and that sort of solution, and then using that varied background we talked of, and see if we can solve some problems, and not just replacing paper, but integrating some technologies. And that's sort of, you touched on that information fusion before. Those principles are a military sort of principles. They're basically having all of the information from all of the different perspectives and assets, so that the commander can make a really informed decision. So why can't we do that with construction? Why can't you have all the information? Why can't you know where the concrete truck's going to, if it's going to turn up 5 minutes later, an hour later, whatever, if the design's correct, if the steel's in the right place, all of those, it's heaps of logistics.
And then obviously with this this Antler sort of work that you're doing, and the coaching and getting involved in that. And that's what's with a view of obviously taking priority from a one-man band like yourself, which you've found being, oh, this is great. I can make a living out of this. And, this is my full-time job. How do I grow this business? And that's probably a new venture transition that a lot of drone businesses go through, where they have that initial success. You go, oh, that's great. And they go, I want to sort of venture and see how far I can grow this business. And then they go, oh, hang on a sec, I'm stuck because it's just me here. And so you've found a way of trying to grow your business through this, I suppose, not this platform, but this.
Through this program. And it's a different type of growth, I guess, because, with growth, everything scales. And if I'm a service provider only, there's only so much growth I can do. There's only so many hours in the day. So it means I've got to have staff.
Like a physio, yeah.
So you can only execute so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
So the idea is to go into this with a software solution, and potentially I'll be a service provider to that platform, which makes sense. So that's just one component of a solution. So construction tech, we can talk about all the different types of inputs into that ecosystem, and what we're doing with the drones is just one component of it. So that's pretty exciting.
It is. I like the fact, and I think most people have to be smart about the fact that drones is a great entry point. However, and it's how we got started as a business as well, that, if you just think drones only, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities, because essentially why you got into that drone space is you found an opportunity for for a problem or a solution, trying to find a solution for a problem. And then all of a sudden, if you can expand out from, hang on a sec, we can make solutions here for problems outside of just drones only as well, which is what you're doing, internal, external, etc.
Yeah, so we're trying to pick up the problems for the full life cycle of the build, because each stage has a problem. So why can't we be there for all of it, instead of just at the start, at the end, where you do all the cool, sexy images at the end when it's all finished, or the maps at the start. But we can be there and validate the whole thing. It's quite enjoyable, and I like that being, builder as well. I like to see that process. So.
All right. Well, that is really interesting stuff. Like, obviously going through your background, it's actually a really good story. I really enjoy seeing how people get stuck into it, and how they change from industry to industry, and where their life sort of flows. And seems like a good spot at the moment, mate. Your hips are in good nick. You're surfing. You got your own business. You're part of this sort of entrepreneurial background, or this program. Seemed to be a good space. I do have to talk to you about your little logo there. It's a very nice logo. I love my logos. I love people who make a bit of an effort, especially in the drone space. I've got a bit of a thing about people who start drone business and just put a picture of a drone or a pair of wings with a camera. Stay away from it, people, please. Well, that's a really nice one. I really like that.
I appreciate that.
It's because there is a little bit of a drone feel to it, but nothing too hard. So
it's not in your face. It's a very good play on obviously the priority and the Droneworks. So it's the P and the D, and it sort of looks a little bit like a Phantom. So the whole design behind it. So a good mate of mine, Dan at Formswell in Canberra, he's an industrial designer. So if you've got a Breville toaster or blender, he's one of the dudes that used to be on that design team back in the day.
Really?
So he thinks way outside.
That's good.
He gets tasked.
And he did that for you?
And he did it, yeah. So we sort of look, we need a bit of aviation, we need a bit of this, we need a really cool colour. And he sampled the colour off an F-35 jet and just went, that's CMYK code.
It's the code.
That's the colour.
That's the one.
Yep. So
I like it. Make an effort. For those who are starting a drone business, do something a bit different. Don't put a pair of wings with a camera, please.
There needs to be a story behind it.
It needs to be a story. And don't call it UAV.
Yeah.
Something.
Exactly. Because you just get lost in the searches.
It's a drone, just a drone. Yeah. Mate, it's been a pleasure. First off the rank, it's been really good. I've really enjoyed, sort of looking. I try not to look too much about people's, don't try and stalk people too much when I interview them, because I want to keep it as fresh as I possibly can. So I'll learn a lot of things about it. And I dare say that our business and your business will be working closely in the future, no doubt. Mate, thanks again for having me.
Yeah, no, it's been really good.
No worries. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Dunskies? Sorry.